Hey guys, it's Libby and I am coming at you today with my September wrap-up and October TBR. This month I basically finished up all of the books I had randomly started throughout August. So I got through 5 novels, 1 short story, 1 play, and 1 audiobook. The first thing that I finished was the audiobook of Redemption in Indigo by Karen Lord. I finished it at the beginning of the month and then I hadn't been planning to give it its own review, but as I was planning out how I was gonna go through this video, I realized that I had too much to say to just cram it in here. So Redemption in Indigo will be getting its own review shortly. Just to briefly cover it, it was a sort of folkloric feeling fantasy set in Africa in modern times. It's about a woman who gets a powerful magical item and a god trying to get it back from her. I thought it was interesting but really slowly paced, and so I gave it 3.5 out of 5. Next, I read the short story, which is called Either Far North or True North by Sarah Maitland. It was originally published under the name True North, but then it was turned into a film, and the film was called Far North, so sometimes when it's published now, it is called Far North. And I read it because the movie Far North is my favorite film of all time. It gets even more confusing because there are actually 2 films called Far North. The one I'm talking about was directed by Asif Kapadia, who you may know from his Amy Winehouse documentary, and it stars Michelle Yeoh and Sean Bean. There's another one with Jessica Lange and Patrick Swayze or something. I haven't seen that one. Cannot pass judgment on it. It's a very minimalist story. The movie has 10-minute sections with no dialogue, and then when there is dialogue, it's 2, maybe 3 sentences. The movie and the story are quite similar in terms of plot structure. The only real difference is that in the book, the characters are more sort of archetypal. They don't have names, they don't really have histories. And in the film, the characters get fleshed out a bit more. And it's basically about these 2 women, one of whom is older, one of whom is younger, and they live together alone in the wilds of either Alaska or Kamchatka, probably. And they don't interact with other people. And then one day, a man shows up. I gave the story a 3 out of 5. I thought it was fine. Turned into a really great movie, though. And I'm gonna be straight with you. It's weird. It is a weird story, and the end, the only word to describe it is disturbing. The sort of last action does have a bit of a fairy tale feel, as in that wouldn't quite work in real life, so it makes sense that the whole of the short story had that kind of vibe. And I'm really bummed out that most of the people I convinced to watch this movie with me don't like it. It was this is super weird. I got David to watch it with me and he likes it, he gets it. But you just gotta be really into Alaska porn, or just shots of the beautiful landscape. So good. And then the short story, I'm not sure if it was intended to be read this way. I don't know what the rest of Sarah Maitland's writing is but it's really easy to see it as a feminist allegory about how women can live together perfectly fine, and then when you add a man to the mix, he ruins everything. The movie is more about monsters and what happens when you treat someone as a monster and how they may turn into one because of how they're treated, even if they aren't actually, and I dig that storyline. So the short story is really short. It's maybe 10 pages. So you're not losing too much if you decide to read it. The movie, so good though. Please watch it. Anyway, the next thing I read was 2 middle grade novels, the first 2 books of the Spiderwick Chronicles. They are called The Field Guide and The Seeing Stone, and they were written jointly by Holly Black, you may have heard of her, and Tony DiTerlizzi. I read these because I was pretty sick earlier this month, and I wanted something that wasn't interesting, and that is what I got. I was pretty unimpressed with these, and I'm not planning to read the next 3 books to finish out the series. This is in no small part due to the fact that I have read and loved the series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket, and reading these made it really clear to me the spectrum that middle grade books exist on. There's some, like the Spiderwick Chronicles, at least to my knowledge, maybe the last 3 books are amazing, probably not, that are just like there to stop your children from bothering you and to like get kids to engage with reading. And you know, that's fine, but I don't want to read it. And then there's, on the other end of the spectrum, Series of Unfortunate Events and books like it, which are like trying to do something, and those are still good even if you are an adult. So the books are really short and you can get through them in an hour, and I'm not sure if they were all published at the same time or if they came out serially, but like the second one was a little bit better, but the first one really has no plot. It's just introducing you to the characters. So if you want the full like arc, one satisfying story arc, you're gonna have to read all 5, I believe. It's about this family. The parents have just gotten divorced, and the mom is taking her 3 children, 13-year-old Mallory and 9-year-old twins, Simon and Jared. Simon, is that his name? I can't even remember. To live in their aunt's house, which is this creepy old Victorian Gothic thing. You'd think I would like that, but majorly disappointed. And in this house they find like a secret room with the field guide to fairies, and then it's like their interaction with all of the various fairies around them, and I just didn't care. The plot very much felt like there wasn't like a unifying theme to it. Like, we're just having conflict because books are supposed to have conflict. And it's like, oh, this is a problem. How will we solve it? Oh, look, we solved it. Okay, next. Just stick to Lemony Snicket, guys. The next book I finished was Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, my favorite book of all time. And I know I haven't talked about it on this channel very much. Part of that's because I haven't reread it since I started my booktube channel. I've gone like the longest amount of time without reading this book since I started reading it and rereading it and listening to it in high school, I think. So this is a sort of modern Gothic story. It was published in the 30s, so not super modern. And it's about a young woman who is unnamed. She's 21 years old. Her parents are both dead. And so she, to earn her living, is working as the companion, which is kind of like one step up from a maid. You do all the maid stuff, but you are still sort of taken out into society to have, you know, tea with people. And she's the companion to this like obnoxious American woman, and she hates it. And then she meets this man who has a cool car and is, you know, nice to her and like treats her like she exists, unlike all of the other people. And she falls pathetically in love with him. And they do get married and go back to his house, where she discovers that his previous wife's presence is still going strong. His previous wife was named Rebecca, and she was glamorous and charismatic and beautiful and threw the best parties and athletic and knew just what to say to get everybody to like her. And that is not at all what our protagonist is like. And so she's feeling very inadequate. And the house is still being run the way Rebecca used to run the house. And the housekeeper was Rebecca's best friend. And Maxim, her husband, is still like obsessed with Rebecca. And so, not good. So this is all rather trying to someone who already has like pretty severe social anxiety. And that is why I like this book, because I have social anxiety in the same way that she has social anxiety. There's long sections that are just not things that are really happening, but in her mind she has these whole elaborate scenes and conversation where people are like talking about her and what they must think of her. And yep, that's why I don't like to talk about this book that much. It is too like personal. So on the one hand, read it, it's great. On the other hand, don't read it. I don't like this window to my soul existing. Obviously, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And then the next thing I got through was the play that I was actually in. I'm a voice actor, and so I was doing this as part of that. And it is Porcelain and Pink by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Hey, he wrote The Great Gatsby, you know him. It's a short one-act play. I was playing Lois, and it's about the main like point of the play is that one character, Lois's sister, is in a bathtub, and the intrigue is that like, is she gonna get out of the bathtub and we're gonna see a naked woman on stage? But the actual plot is sort of mix-up of identities between Lois and her sister when Lois's new boyfriend comes around. It was silly and fun. I gave it like a 3.5 or maybe a 4. And then I read Radiance by Catherine M. Valente. This definitely needs its own review. It's a whole thing, guys. It's a whole thing. I kind of don't know what to say about it because it's like confusing and abstracted is not the word. Obtuse is not the word. But like distant. Like you gotta work to get there, like to the book. I'm not doing a very good job of this. And so I feel like if I talk to you about it, I will be giving stuff away because like even information about how the world works is kind of a spoiler. So I'll say I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think I have to reread it even though I didn't love it because like then I'll actually understand what's going on. We'll sort through this more in my review, which will be forthcoming. And then finally I read A Hatful of Sky, the second book in the Tiffany Aching series by T. Pratchett. It was not as good as We Free Men. And I think the key difference between the Tiffany Aching series and the rest of the Discworld books is that these are not satire. The rest of the books are clearly satirizing something. These are just like your basic fantasy story. And like the cool Terry Pratchett magical stuff happened in like the last quarter of the book, but the rest of it I was like, this is like preteen drama that I don't care about. So this one only got a 3 out of 5, which I think is the lowest rating I've given a Discworld book since like the very first Rincewind ones. So that was last month. For next month, I'm going to finish the books that I am currently reading. The first one is the Daphne du Maurier House on the Strand, which is about a guy who takes a drug that makes you time travel to the 14th century and craziness happens there. I am also listening to the audiobook of The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. Yes, I have hopped on board that train. I'm like a quarter or a third of the way into the first book. There's some things that I think she hasn't quite worked out how she was going to do. Maybe 1 or 2 more drafts could have sorted that out. But I do like the atmosphere, and this is the first book that I've read in like as long as I can remember that is set in Virginia, which is interesting for me because I am a Virginian. I was born in Northern Virginia, currently live in Northern Virginia. I went to college at William & Mary, which is down like Chesapeake Bay, southern Chesapeake Bay area. This the Raven Boys is not quite set in my part of the state. I don't think Henrietta, Virginia is a real town, but I can tell it's like southern Piedmont moving in to the mountains. There's going to be a lot of Virginia geography that I'm throwing around here. But this weekend is my dad's 70th birthday. And so the family, we're having a bit of a family reunion. Don't worry, I like my family. Sometimes family reunions are bad, but my family reunions are good. So we're going down to Lake Anna and dropping books. We're going down to Lake Anna, which is like in this sort of area that Henrietta is, I think. So I will enjoy listening to the audiobook on my drive down there, getting the atmosphere. That's always perfect when like you're driving through the setting of your book. And then the two books that I'm going to be bringing with me, because House on the Strand is slow going. The first one is God Help the Child by Toni Morrison. I got it recently and it is interesting me, and it is short. It's short and it's paperback, so easy to pack. And then I have been feeling the call of Midwinter Blood by Marcus Sedgwick. This seems like a good, you know, moody autumnal book. And then, of course, some point this month, I'm going to get around to Wintersmith, which is the next book in the Tiffany Aching series. It is the third. There's a total of 5. So those are the books that I want to get through in the beginning of the month. And then as we move into the second half, there is Dewey's Readathon. So that will require its own whole TBR planning. So I'm holding off on that for now. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you had a lovely September and that October holds untold wonders and bliss.